So, welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success stories series of interviews, where we discuss with local business leaders their backgrounds, their successes, their challenges, and what's really driving them forwards. And this afternoon, I'm delighted to have with us Jen Wright, who's founder at the Cocktail Pickers Club. So, firstly, Jen, thank you for spending a bit of time with us. And if you'd like to introduce yourself, the Cocktail Pickers Club, what you do, how you help people, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, so thank you for having me, first of all. So our business is all around perfectly batched cocktails. So they're all handmade cocktails that we pre-batch in advance. And the business has changed a little bit, which I'll tell you about. But currently we are in kegs and bag in box, which mainly aims to the on-trade, so into pubs,
Right.
bars, restaurants, to the event space all over the country. So we're UK wide, which is exciting. But yeah, that's currently how we were. So the business is actually 10 years old next year, which is
Congratulations.
yeah, quite a challenge. And it's changed so much over those times. So we actually first started out in glass bottles. So
Right.
we were one of the first to market in glass bottles.
Yep.
So yeah, that's how it originally started. So I've actually, my background was property. I had an estate agency business, and about 7 years in, I was ill in bed one day, and it was actually Christmas Eve, and I had a house full the next day, and just
Right.
assumed I could go into the supermarket and buy some good pre-mixed cocktails. And when it didn't happen, I thought, oh, I'll do that. I'll sell my business. And
Brilliant.
yeah, literally just like that. My friends and my family said, Jen, you've got this great business. You're crazy. What are you doing? And the business had just got to the point where it ran itself. It
Yep.
was doing well. I had a great team. I had a nice lifestyle, but I just wanted a new challenge. And
Brilliant.
I just thought, right, challenger brand. I had no idea what I was letting myself in for. It's the same as what most people would say. If I knew then what I know now, I probably would have never done it. But here we are. It's been an unbelievable journey, and yeah, exciting. Still love it as much as the first day, which is amazing, really.
Brilliant. Well, what great. That's when you know you're in the right place, whether you love it today as
Yeah.
much as you did 10 years. And I'm sure you're aware, but the stats, or I suspect you're aware, the stats on business survival means that, to get to 10 years is quite a significant event.
Yes, yeah, and there's definitely been some hairy moments, particularly navigating the middle of that through COVID
Yes.
was so tough, and we're still sort of feeling the aftermath of that. We'll have 10 years paying the COVID debts off, which is
Yes.
hard, but we're kind of halfway through that and battling on. And it's amazing, there's some businesses that started at a similar time to ours that are no longer there, and
Yep.
some businesses we absolutely loved, and it was so hard and so surprising to see them go missing, but for understandable reasons. And
Yes.
it's to keep battling on,
Yep.
it does take some resilience, really does.
I think it's a feature of many of the people I interview is that resilience to keep going. Um,
Absolutely.
I think there's a couple of phrases around it's not, it's not the fault. In fact, one of my favorite quotes is I think it's a Japanese saying, which is fall down 7 times, but get up eight.
Yeah, no, and it's absolutely that. I always think the people that survive in business are the people that really love the business, because particularly early on, if you were in it for the money, we just wouldn't survive. You just, it's such a battle, particularly when you've got stock and you grow in.
Yep.
In my last estate agency business, I thought, oh, I'm running a business. I can do a different business. I had no idea how then running a business with stock an inventory, how just
Yes.
completely different that would be.
Yep.
I was totally naive. I had no experience in cocktails, of manufacturing them. I had no idea what I was myself in for. I just thought it sounded fun, it sounded glamorous. And let me just tell you that my legs are constantly bruised, we're lugging things about, but I absolutely love it. So yeah, it's good.
Brilliant, brilliant. And so, when you were growing up, is this what you foresaw for yourself, or did you have other plans when you were growing up?
Well, I've actually been in business 21 years. So I started my first business when I was 19,
Oh,
unbelievably.
wow.
Yeah, and I actually can't believe that. At the time, you just think you know so much. So my family are business background, so I kind of didn't know any different.
Yep.
I just thought that's what we did. And I thought living at home, if I don't start my business now, well, I haven't got any outgoings, then it's going to be a lot harder.
Yep.
And I look at people now that are starting businesses with mortgages and families, and I really take my hat off to them, because I feel that I had it easy in some
Yep.
respects, without that pressure. So yeah, it's been a journey. I like to joke that property drove me to booze at times, but
Yes, I could get that one. And I mean, obviously, you mentioned COVID has been one of the biggest challenges, but what other things, sort of challenges, have you had to face? And maybe that, especially that transfer from property into this business. What are some of the things that really been difficult?
Yeah, so basically, how we started off, I absolutely loved the farm shops, and I thought, I'll create this gorgeous product, and it'll go into the farm shops and the lovely supermarkets. So we supplied farm shops up and down the country. We
Yep.
supplied Booths, which was just a gorgeous supermarket that I absolutely loved. Ocado online, it was all
Yep.
wonderful, and it was great, but it was hard to keep the traction of that going, because you were constantly pushing it and educating, because it was a new product to the market. You were constantly educating the client of what it was, because there wasn't bottled cocktails. They didn't understand it. They didn't
Yes.
know, do you put vodka in, do you not? I was doing events all the time, explaining and really trying to cheerlead. And I remember an old boy was totally confused and said to me, "Oh, this will be lovely on my salad." Which, anyway, he bought 6 bottles, so we just went with it. I did explain it over and over, but what can you do? And when you're one of the big guys in the big companies, because particularly with alcohol, what I didn't realize at the time is there's major producers that work all over the world. They've got big budgets to tell
Yes.
their story, and
Yeah.
little old Jen over here was just on markets trying to do my best and tell the story, and it was hard. So just previous to COVID, I thought, this product's going to work really well in the bars, but I realized they didn't have fridge space. So we started developing into kegs, basically. So if you imagine the beer system, it runs from a plastic keg rather than a steel keg, but
Okay.
through a beer system,
Yep.
exactly the same. So I thought that's going to be perfect. We're going to
Yep.
get some brilliant traction. And it was meant to launch pre-COVID. And basically we had some issues which meant it didn't, but thank God, because if that product would have launched pre-COVID, I just don't know how we would have survived.
Yeah.
But how we were keeping funding the business, because initially I put money into the business, but then to keep the business going, we were doing all these events. And I just remember ping, email after email from the events company, like literally overnight. 6 months of my work just went missing, and we kind of fell into a gap where we weren't really supported by many of the grants. So we had a big
Yes.
unit to pay for. They didn't really understand what our business was. So we didn't fall into hospitality. We didn't
Yeah.
fall into this. So it was hard, So
Yes.
we ended up with a big bounce back loan, which, like I say, will be paying off for 10 years.
Yeah.
But we're still here. We're still adapting. So we're now in bars, which is amazing. We're supplying some amazing bars throughout the country. And some amazing big events, which is just crazy. When you
Brilliant.
see your product that you've developed, it's so amazing. And I think that's what kind of keeps you motivated. And I'm so proud to be in this space with food and drink producers. When you look at the amazing food and drink producers that we have in the UK, I'm
Yes.
so proud to sit alongside that, because we've got some amazing innovation. You just walk into one farm shop and see the innovation of the food and drink. It's incredible. And what goes into that, I really have a lot of passion for, and very supportive of all the
Brilliant.
producers.
Well, your passion comes across really strongly, and it's great. And I totally agree. We've been lucky enough to work with quite a few sort of food and beverage manufacturing businesses
Mm,
over time, and it's just great
yeah,
because they all start with a passion for doing what they do, you know,
yeah,
and follow it through. It's
yeah.
wonderful. So,
Mm.
whether it's from the challenges or the successes, what would you say the biggest learnings you've had about founding and growing a business, whether it's this one or the previous one?
I would definitely say that being a small business or being a micro business like us, is you are expected to do everything. You know,
Yes.
you clean the floor, you've got to understand your labels, you've got to understand your product. You know, if you go to a manufacturer in my industry and you come across like you don't know what you're talking about, they're just not even going to work with you. You know,
Yeah.
you have literally got to walk the walk. And it's definitely a challenge. I remember I had a new launch of a new product, new flavor, and stupidly, and I cannot ever believe that I did this, but I was working with a brand agency who I worked with all the time. So, and I must just not have double checked this label, and they'd spelt cocktail wrong on the back of
Oh,
it in small print. And it's just crazy. And I just could not believe, I was so gutted, you know. And I was actually at the launch when I realized it. And things like that, where you're rushing so hard and it's so easy sometimes to just miss the
yes.
smallest detail,
Yes.
because you're just juggling so much all the time, and you kind of put your trust, oh, you've worked with this brand agency, and it's totally my responsibility to check it. But when you just think you're working on the next flavor, you just can't believe that got missed. And
Yes.
there's challenges like that you just can't help but be so mad about with
Yeah.
yourself, really beat yourself up. But you've got to keep going, and you've just got to find a way. You've got to get rid of your thousands of bottles with the wrong spelling on, and carry on. So we just made a fun marketing about it, and joked about it, and it actually sometimes comes across very honest. And
Yes.
the people buying from you can see how you are a real person, and
Yep.
sometimes they really buy into that. So just turning that round into something
Brilliant.
positive and moving forward is just the way to go, definitely.
Brilliant. I was going to say, yeah, I was just thinking that if you make a joke of it, there's no point hiding it.
Yeah.
But I also think, and I don't know how you feel about this, because I'm sure at the time it was like, oh my God, this is the worst thing in the world. But ultimately, it probably only a small percentage of the population even spotted it themselves.
Oh, no one even noticed it was the smallest word, but it was
Yes,
the biggest word to me because that's
of
the
course.
product name, you know. But like literally, it was written on the bottle so many times, but then this one little, nobody even noticed. And even when we pointed it out to people, they didn't notice, And it's just one of them that you laugh about now, but at the time, it's the most frustrating thing in the world.
Yeah.
And things like that happen,
Yes.
luckily we've never made mistakes like that since, but things like that, and things can get missed, and that's the hardest challenge as a
Yeah.
micro business. We don't have 10 people with 10 different departments specialize in their own particular part. It's great now for us because my partner is now full-time in the business, so he has brought the manufacturing in house, and that's what
Brilliant.
he specializes in. So that's incredible to just know that he's so amazing at that. And I have my part. I do the sales and the front side of the business.
Yep.
And to know we both can rely on each other. It's just amazing.
Brilliant. Brilliant. And I think you're aware we're a business coaching organisation. I'm keen to know who the best coaches you've worked with, whether that's business, sport, life in general. Who's had the biggest impact on you?
Yeah, I mean, definitely for me, rely a lot on podcasts. I think it's really inspirational to listen to these people. And, on the hard days when you are struggling, to listen to something like this and to listen to somebody's authentic story can really motivate you.
Yes.
So I do a lot of podcast listening, and also people around you who you surround yourself is really important. This year, I've actually had a bit of a tough year personally from a mental health point of view. So I've been going to weekly therapy, which has been amazing for me, and helps you both in personal and business,
Yeah.
because without both,
Yes.
you don't get anywhere, do you? At the end of the day.
Absolutely. And yeah, do you have any favourite podcasts you can recommend?
So I just mentioned one to you earlier. So there's a woman's, a friend's one. It's called Friendship Therapy. It's best friend therapy. I really like that one.
Love it.
And yeah, so they're just two friends, really, but one of them is a therapist, and they talk, and it's amazing to hear the women sort of. I really champion the women in business, so it's nice to hear that, and
Brilliant.
also the Stephen Bartlett and the big ones that sort of
Yep.
everyone kind of listens to. But yeah, we really love I really love the podcasts.
Brilliant. Brilliant. And whether it's a podcast or any other sources, do you have any favourite quotes or sayings that you catch yourself using on a regular basis about business or life in general?
Yeah, I don't know that I can think any off the top of my head, but there's definitely some in there.
That
Um,
I think when you were just talking about the misspelling of cocktail on the thing,
yeah,
the one that came to mind for me, which stands me in good stead, is I think it comes from Tony Robbins, and he basically says, if it won't matter in 5 years' time, it doesn't matter now.
yes, I
Um,
love that.
and it's like, yeah, I appreciate it must have felt really terrible to see this mistake, but no one's going
Yeah,
to remember it in 5 years' time, except you probably.
yeah, I am trying to live by the Mel Robbins let them at the moment. I
Brilliant.
think that's a really important one for personal and work.
Yes.
It's not quite as it's interesting, and I've been talking to the therapist about this week. How different your role can be in work and home, and how you separate that, and
Yes.
how you be that different person, because it kind of is like being twins and having
Yes.
your different shoes, and it can get confusing, particularly when you
Yeah.
work in long hours, to then remember who you are and not always just put your work t-shirt on every day.
Yeah.
Remember you are a person, and just really look after your mental health. It's something I'm really trying to focus on this
Yeah.
year.
It's really interesting. I remember quite early stages in doing being a business coach. One of the trainings I went on, and they were training us on identity, and
Mhm.
one of the triggers was, as you know, as you put your hand on the handle of your door as you go home, just think, who do I need to be right now? And it
Yes.
really helped me just go, right, okay, I was up to now, I was a businessman, a business coach. Right now, I need to be husband, father, whatever
Yes.
it is I need to be to walk in, and just have literally a reset of identity as we walk through the door was quite an interesting way to trigger it.
I love that. That's so interesting. It's something I'm really going to take away. It's because I am really passionate about the business, and Ben works in
Yes,
the business, so he's also really passionate. We do find it hard to switch off, and when an email pings through, or being partners in work and
yes,
home can make it harder, and sometimes you just end up being cocktail pickers, and you forget you've even got your own name. So trying to work that out is for us is a constant challenge. It's a
yes,
constant battle. But when it's something that you love, it's
yeah,
hard to switch that off, but it's also very important.
yeah. Yeah, there's just sometimes there's these little tricks or tips that you can do that just make that
Yeah,
difference of,
absolutely.
just as you say, change that behavior.
Yeah.
And so think about learning further. What have you say you'd learned about yourself in your journey so far, Jen?
It's funny because I've always said, particularly now, with say my parents, when they first set out in business, there was no Google, they didn't have things at the fingertips that we have now.
Yeah.
And I do think that business is quite a level playing field, because everybody has access to the same information. Um, and it's now about who wants to go for it and who wants to put the work in. So it's so interesting from that point of view, how that's kind of worked out, you
Yes.
know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a really good point, and I mean, I can look back over at my business career and at how things have changed. As you say,
Mm,
nowadays, there it is not obvious from its website or its communication or
yeah,
its socials how big a business is or isn't,
yes.
which is a great advantage. I don't know if it's a disadvantage, but I think it's certainly a great advantage for small and medium-sized businesses for sure.
Yeah, I've always kind of had the mantra that I haven't got anything different to anyone else. I've just worked hard, and
Yeah,
um, But then sometimes I do look at things and think, I have sacrificed a lot more than most would do to get to the business to where it is. There's been so many occasions where I can't go out for a family meal, or I can't do this because that I know between Monday and Saturday, for example, that's what you're doing. To keep the business going. Initially, we spent weekends at events selling bottles,
Right.
selling our story. Now we have a tap room. So Ben and I have a tap room in Garforth where we do events and private parties, and
Oh,
that
brilliant.
really helps trial new products because all
Yep.
the cocktails are on tap now. So that really helps with that and seeing what people think to them, because there is nothing like putting your product in front of people, particularly the people that might have had a drink or two, to know exactly what they think to it. And,
Yes.
there's so much imposter syndrome for us, where you think,
Yeah.
oh my God, this product's not good enough just because one person's not taking it or talk down your product. And when you see it in that tap room, doing
Yes.
so well and seeing it for your own eyes, it does
Yes.
you so much good to see that and pick yourself up from that. It's important.
Brilliant. Love it. Absolutely love it. And I'm interested, actually, given you've talked about your career, pre this
Mm,
business, the estate agency businesses. Um, a definite definition of an action coach of a true business is a
mm,
commercial, profitable enterprise
mm,
that works without its owners, or at least can work without its owners.
mm.
What are your thoughts on that?
It's definitely a difficult balance, particularly for micro businesses, because
Yes.
it's just Ben and I in the business, so that's the hard thing for
Yes.
us. We hope that next year we will expand and split the business off again. Because ultimately setting up an alcohol business, the aim is for a sellout,
Yep.
for one of the big boys. That's
Yes.
what we graft for. So hopefully that day will come. So ultimately we do need to gear the business that it can work without you, and it does from a point of view now where when it's on tap and we see how the customers are buying that, we know that maybe one flavor's not working as well.
Yes.
But then, to be honest, sometimes the flavors can change depending on the areas. But as long as they're getting off the bar, the brand's really important. They're getting off the bar. That's enough for you to know that it's good enough and it's working.
Brilliant. Brilliant. So alongside that, what does the future look like for you guys, and what challenges do you think you might face, if any?
So it's always a challenge scaling up,
Yep.
particularly with stock. I've got some similar friends in different parts of the industry, but and we always say, the challenges of say cash flow and manufacturing and development. So all of our cocktails are developed in house now. That's what Ben looks after. So all them problems are still there. They're just on a different scale, and you're always going to come across these challenges. And the other thing in this industry is somebody could come in, and we've seen it ourselves, where you bring out a particular flavor, the big boys like it, and they copy
Yeah.
you. So
Yep.
them challenges are all there. I used to worry so much about people copying. Now I massively take it as a compliment and
Yes.
think that's great news. I mean, it's it's not always that easy, because if they've got more money than you to do something about it, it can be hard. But sometimes it paves the way. So there's some big
Yes.
boys now doing the cocktails on tap, but actually what it's done for us is shown the market that it works. And we like to think that we've got a higher quality product, which is what they want. So it
Yes.
helps pave the market for us. And it's just the way you look at it, I guess.
Yeah, I think it is, isn't it? It's just so well, how what's good about this? And firstly, obviously, clearly, as you say, you're innovative, and sometimes
Mm,
it is just be the leader in this business. It's like, yeah,
yeah.
everyone else is a follower, but I suppose the good side is also you're being noticed, and if the
Yes.
big boys are copying you, then there's already going to be some
Yes.
interest in what you're doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, that's interesting, and I'm keen to know what you'd say to anyone that's thinking of going to business right now, Jen.
Literally, my words to anybody going into business is don't overthink it, just go for it. I have met so many people in my life that have written business plan upon business plan, and yes, it's important. You've got to know where you're going. However, when it comes to it, it's so funny. When we set out in business, we were like, oh, our target market's going to be female between 25 and 30, 35 or 40 or this. And, you do all this work in what you call the white space of where your product fits, because there's no other product there. And then you're on market selling to people that you're just like, why are they buying my product? They are not in my white space. So overthinking this is,
Yes.
Another one of my things I uh, possibly regret when I set up is my branding was actually £25,000, which was incredible. I mean, it's totally different now because we have the likes of Canva and so much access, whereas
Yes.
before we really relied on a designer, and now we can do a lot ourselves, which is amazing. But to not overthink it and just go for it is the way. And just take it steady, see what the market says, and just be honest with yourself. Don't put glitter on it. Don't say, oh, it's definitely going to work. You've got to be careful about it, but ultimately just go for it.
Love it, love it. And finally, what would be the best advice you could give an 18-year-old you if you could go back in time and do that?
Don't pay 25 grand for your first branding. No, do you know what? I actually wouldn't change any of it.
Brilliant.
I mean, when I first set out in business, I was in property, and literally I went into Retford and opened an estate agent at the age of 23. And the majority of people that were there were estate agents that had been there generations. And I worried so much about what was going on around me, and ultimately none of it mattered.
Yeah.
You just get your head down. Whatever you're worrying about somebody else, you're never worrying about, you've
Yeah.
not put your energy into your own business.
Yeah.
You've just got to go for it. And now I literally, if anyone else sets up cocktails, I'll go and talk to them. I'm just not that person anymore. I'm just not scared. You just go
Brilliant.
for it.
Brilliant. Wonderful. Sound advice for everybody, I think.
Yeah, no, there's enough room for all of us, isn't there?
There very much is. I think that's the key thing is focus on ourselves and, if
Yeah.
anything, collaboration rather than
Yes.
competition. Because
Yes.
one thing I still believe to be true. I've never met two businesses that, however close their branding was, completely overlapped in what they did.
Yes.
You
It's
get
totally.
some are quite significant, but there's
Yeah.
there's always a gap. There's always a bit that we do
Yeah.
that you don't, or vice versa.
Yeah.
And collaboration is so much more. It's
Yeah.
enjoyable as much as anything else, but it's certainly less
Yeah.
stressful.
And that negative energy is just such a waste.
Absolutely.
Ultimately, even if you're scared of it, you've just got to concentrate on what you're doing and go for it, because even if you are very similar, there's still room. You've just
Yes.
got to find your little space and believe in what you're doing and go for it.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Sound advice for anybody. Jen, it's been delightful talking to you, and I wish you all the best for the future. And for anyone that's watching that would like to get in touch with you or the Cocktail Pickers, what would be the best way of doing that?
Website, so cocktailpickers.co.uk. We've also got a little tap room in Garforth, which is perfectly batch bar, which we open for private parties and events. We've got some really fun events, daytime clubbing and private parties. We
Brilliant.
Oktoberfest and all sorts. So yeah, we're always happy to see people down there for sure.
Oh, brilliant! I'll have a look at your website. It'd be great to know more. And it'd be great to swing by another 6 to 12 months and just see what the next stage of your journey has been
Yeah,
so
amazing.
far. But for now, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. Thanks for
Thank,
speaking to me.
thank you.